Fight!
Hello everyone, welcome back to Kick Punch. It's been a little while, but it's good to be back. This is an exciting series. We're going to cover something that I am recently basically obsessed with, and I'm going to pull up the concept here. And this is the concept that I've sketched up from it's based on the TV show Primal, and this is one of my new favorite shows right now. And the only word I think that is an adequate description for the show is that it's pure metal. Like it's the absolute most metal show I've ever seen in my life. So I highly recommend it. There's some violence, just fair warning. But anyway, very inspired by the show and the style and the poses and like how dynamic the show is. It's just awesome. So this is the concept that I sketched up, and this is the thing we're going to be making in this series. So we're going to just jump right into it. Be sure to, as usual, like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't, and bash that bell for me so that you get notifications, because I'm going to start making these videos and uploading as I go, and so you'll want to get notified when I upload the next part of the tutorial series. So anyway, we're just going to do this live. I'm using vanilla ZBrush, as you can see here. So this is just everything, that you'll get when you get ZBrush yourself. I think I might have clicked through the UI, so it's like a different color, but other than that, everything's going to be as it should be for instruction purposes. So let's go ahead and start off with a lightbox tool. We'll come over here to the tools and bring up this little drop down here. We'll click on project, and we're going to start with the Dynamesh Sphere 64 resolution ZPR. So we'll double click that guy and load it up. And this is going to change everything to 3D mode for us. And just so you know, this tutorial series is not going to be for absolute beginners. I'm not going to cover the very basics of navigation and UI and the basic functionality of ZBrush. If you're interested in that, you can feel free to head over to my channel page and take a look through some of the playlists here, where I have a whole plethora of videos that you can check out that cover the very basics. So if you want to learn, start with one of these, and then meet us back in this video later on. So alright, so let's start with the basic block out. We'll take another look at our concept real quick and get some inspiration. So we'll start with the T-Rex. This is like a baby, like a juvenile T-Rex that he's become friends with. So I don't want to spoil it for you, but it's pretty cool. So we'll start with this guy, and we'll start blocking out the basic shapes, and we'll go from there. So back into ZBrush or Clip Studio. We will turn on our snake hook brush, which I have hotkey to number 4 on my keyboard, making sure that we hit X to have our symmetry turned on. And I'm going to start just like blocking out the shape of the head, I think, first. And just being real rough with this for now. The idea is let's just get our shapes in, and then we can always refine later. So I'm going to use the clip curve, holding Control Shift, switch over to my clip curve brush, and I'm going to slash the bottom part of that mouth. And now I'm going to come over to my transform gizmo on the move, using the move tool, and then I'm going to hold Control while I drag down, and that's going to duplicate, copy that, and I'm going to turn off symmetry with X, and then I'm going to, holding Shift, just click this white circle here and rotate 180 degrees and make this his her bottom jaw. And I hope I didn't just spoil anything, but this is the bottom jaw of our dinosaur. It's perfect. Couldn't be more perfect. And I accidentally had symmetry turned off, so I just I undooed a little, and just kind of trying to get things into rough shape again. We're not getting crazy. Okay, so the other thing we want to go with here is let's get the rest of that body going. So let's just start with, let's come over here to the subtool palette and go to append, and we'll append a sphere. And then using our transform, we'll sort of scale it and squash it into a rough body shape. And again, always just be kind of alt-tabbing back and forth between your concept. I personally have my concept up on a separate monitor so that I can always be looking at it, always be retaining that reference. So I find that that's the easiest thing. And I will try to model this in a neutral pose, but I think that I am gonna give it a slightly dynamic pose in its base pose, and you'll see what I mean by that as we go. So I'm just using the snake hook brush. I've run a Dynamesh too at 128 resolution, so it's a fairly low resolution. Just gonna start pulling out the neck and then re-Dynameshing to clean out my little stretched polygons. So adding some thickness here. Whoops, we committed a mortal sin and we forgot to have our symmetry turned on. So a way to go around that is go to deformation, go to mirror that direction on X, and then come over here to geometry, modify topology, and do a mirror and weld on X. And then it'll give us a little awkward crease there. But then make sure you smash the symmetry button, hit X on your keyboard to do that. Just make sure that that's on. And now we are back into cheating mode. I call it cheating mode because I come from a traditional sculpture background, and let's face it, sculpting symmetrically doesn't happen in traditional sculpture, so it's cheating, but also awesome. And it's one of those things. You got to have undos and you got to have symmetrical modeling, and it makes traditional sculpture seem so archaic sometimes, even though I still love it. So just continuing to use the snake hook brush and pull out the tail and get that shape. Again, the shape of the tail is gonna be in a more dynamic pose, as if the T-Rex is running at full sprint. So now I'm using my other favorite brush, the H polish, which I love a lot. Constantly using it. I like to use it for both hard surface and organic modeling. I think it's an awesome brush. And the next one I'm going to use to bring this tail to a point is the pinch brush. Just pinching that guy along. And I think I need to add a little bit of length to that. And we'll go ahead and use the inflate brush. A lot of these brushes that I'm using in the menu, I just don't have set to a hotkey. That's why you see me diving over to the menu. So using the H polish and just kind of on that angle, just trying to bring that to kind of a pinched kind of feel. And oops, switch back over to snake hook. Alright, getting a little too precious with that shape here, so I'm going to move on to the legs. So the legs are going to be a big old shape here. And I think actually what I'm going to do is make these a separate subtool. So let's do a mesh extract. So I'll hold Control and make sure that my mask pen is the active mask tool. And then just kind of draw the rough shape of those thighs. Come over here to Subtool, and down at the bottom go to Extract, and then just do a mesh extract and hit Accept. And then that'll slap those into another subtool for us. We'll go to Deformation. Why does that sound weird? Deformation. Deformation? I don't know. And then inflate those out, give them a little bit more mass. And then start to pull those into shape. Just gonna make sure that our Dynamesh is turned on, which it is not, so we'll keep it at a 128 resolution. And again, just to switch between your subtools quickly, you can just Alt left click on whatever subtool, make sure this guy's unmasked, and then continue just to dive around and refine things as you go. Need to add this guy too, a little bit of a, what's that called? Like a ridge. I want to say a cask or something, I'm not quite sure. There's a name for it, of course, as there is with anything. Let's continue to Alt left click over to our leg, and we'll just keep pulling this guy out. And one of the things you'll notice with snake hook is it just stretches your polygons. So if you want to have a dynamically introduced polygons as you're pulling things out, just click on Sculptors Pro, and it'll make these fun little polys as you're pulling things out. Works pretty well with pretty awesome with the snake hook brush. Other brushes not so much. Right now I'm just using the inflate brush. And again, getting just a little bit too precious, so we'll just keep pulling things down like that. Wouldn't that be wild if that's how they looked? Okay, so I'm turning off Sculptor's Pro for the time being and just do an inflate on these, give them some mass. And then control left click and drag a rectangle outside of your geometry just to rerun your Dynamesh algorithm. This blockout phase is always kind of scary because there's so much to get to. I find that the older I get, the more I tend to divert to complete inaction because I realize how much work things are going to be. Maybe that's laziness, I don't know. So getting a little bit too into the weeds here, still trying to keep our large forms where we need them. I'm actually going to use my transform gizmo, recenter my pivot by clicking on this guy, and then scoot the legs up just a little. I want to make sure things are balanced. And this tail probably needs a little bit more mass too. We're assuming there's a good balance on the character and that they would not fall over with their big old head. Looks like we got an interesting little butt crack going on right here. So let's clean that guy up. So again, it's just broad strokes and trying not to worry about how much there is to do, just focusing on the small tasks at hand. So I'm using my Damien standard and I'm holding the Alt key to get that to pop out. And turning on solo mode to get everything out of the way. So, and then just running a smooth. So a very common workflow is just make sure you push things a little bit too hard and then just smooth things back. It's very common. Using the clay buildup brush now to add some of that medium-sized detail or mass in there. Introducing like kind of like a shoulder blade kind of feel here. I'm not quite sure in the end how detailed I'm going to get with this guy. I think it would be so cool, as always, to take it all the way through texturing and shading and everything in like Maya Arnold, but we'll see what we get to. Okay, so still that's made a little bit too heavy there. So we'll do this, and I'm gonna quickly save. Okay, just gonna all left click back over to the feet, and let's introduce some feet to these legs, so they're not just a nub there. So the way that I'm rotating around and snapping to the different views is just holding shift as I'm rotating. And just continuing to re-Dynamesh. And another thing that I like to do is if I want to maintain like a perfectly round mass, I'll just use like a curved tube and it'll come out like so. And then that way, because when you snake hook stuff around, it can be this like flat kind of shape. And I just want a nice round mass, you know, for these toes. So I'm going to use the transform gizmo and kind of get those into place a little bit, this one, and then from there I'm just going to center my pivot and hold control and drag out 2 more of these guys. So now we've got some beautiful looking toes. Re-Dynamesh, get everything into Dynamesh territory. And then we'll start to continue to shape these toes. We could have just shaped one. That probably would have been the best approach. I'm a glutton for punishment, so maybe these toes are a little bit too long. Pull these guys in just a little. Might give us a kind of a nice shape too. Yeah. Gonna up my resolution to something in the 2s, I think, and then re-Dynamesh. It'll give me some more polygons to work with. And then just start to pull out using the snake hook brush some actual toenails. Turning on Sculptor's Pro, And remember, that's based on the angle at which your camera is viewing, so make sure that your camera's facing the right direction, and then continue to just start pull these guys out. And then maybe some, obviously need some little joints. Just adjusting the foot shape a little bit more. And then I don't really know. I think T-Rexes might have like a little back thumb right here. Fairly certain they do. I mean, I know my dog does. Smooth that guy out. All right, I think that's good for the feet for now. Let's clean up this guy. Continuing to add some mass to that leg and just refining that shape, contact point a little bit. All right, awesome. Now let's hit save, and we'll move on from there to the front arms, these darling little babies here. Making sure our symmetry is turned on. So I'll alt left click into my leg subtool so that we include these arms within that subtool, if that makes sense. And then I'm just gonna draw the rough shape of those arms. And in order to get rid of this little line, you can actually still control, it's a little control rig for you to continue to work with. You can click on the little dotted line in there and you can still shape things roughly. Add a little bit of a bend there, and this is the overall control, so you can just slide it around. And frankly, I think T-Rex's front arms, I mean, as everyone does, are pretty ridiculous. So I'm gonna make them maybe a tiny bit larger than they would be like in reality. And then to get rid of that little line, you just left click anywhere on any geometry and it'll go away. And you'll notice that I forgot to have symmetry on, so I need to add that. So I'm gonna do my classic mirror and then mirror and weld. And that'll give us the front arm. Okay, and then I'm just gonna smooth, and I'm using smooth to kind of like taper that a little bit. And then snake hook, and I'll just re-dynamesh things here. It looks like dynamesh has been turned off by adding those to that subtool, so we'll turn it back on. And now we're in dynamesh land. And I might need to do some research, but I think they've got the 3 fingers going on. I'm gonna pause real quick here. Okay, looks like these poor guys only have 2 fingers on this hand, at least according to this reference image. Found on the Google, so it must be true, right? Because that's how the internet works. And just using my clay tube here to introduce that, and then get rid of that little rig line, and then gonna re-dynamesh and start working with my snake hook brush to give him some claws. Awesome. Awesome. Awesome blossom. Working my way through The Office again. The Superfans episodes are pretty sweet on Peacock, so I've been going through those, and we just watched the Awesome Blossom episode. Alright, so those are looking okay. Just use Damien Standard and just introduce a little bit of some muscle structure. And using snake hook to pull out the joints. All right, cool. So I think we've got it pretty close, but let's A/B between our concept, gonna hit save, and our image just to make sure that things are looking good. Okay, so probably need the head to be a little bit bigger, a little bit more mass in the body itself, but otherwise it's pretty close. Let's go ahead and add some mass down here. Just pull his belly down a little, or her, whatever it is. Okay, and then let's dive back into this mouth area. So you'll see if I hit Shift F and show you the wireframe, it's all one poly group. So one thing we need to do real quick is come over to poly groups and go to auto group. And what that does is it looks at the polygons that are actually vert welded or connected. And if they're not connected by verts or edges or anything, it will separate those into their own colors. And now I can just hit Control Shift left click on that and separate that temporarily, and then run a mask. And now you can see that's a darker value. I'm going to invert that by Control left clicking and tapping. And then I can come over here to rotate, and conveniently my pivot is almost right where I need it to be. And then I can just continue to start to shape this face and sort of like manipulate this bottom jaw without worrying about deforming the upper jaw. It's a really cool way to work within ZBrush. So even though it's the same subtool, as long as you have different poly groups applied, you can kind of just keep things separate. And you'll wonder, well, what happens when I redynamesh? You can come over here to Dynamesh and make sure that you have groups turned on. And then if you do that, once you run your Dynamesh, it'll maintain that grouping and keep those as separate objects, if that makes any sense. So now let's continue to shape our skull. And I'm going to up the resolution. So that's tenderfoot stuff, so we're going to increase that, bump that a good amount. You know, I mean, I'm going to take some liberties too. This is my own kind of fan art, so I'm going to probably scoot the eyes a little bit more forward, closer to the nose, because I think that looks just more metal. It's kind of more of a snake type vibe, actually. But I think that's cool looking. Using the H polish, turning off my polyframe. Again, that's just Shift F to turn that on and off. And I'll crank this to something, and then redynamesh. And then grab my clay build-up brush and just kind of push things, oops, going the wrong direction. Just going to hold Alt to push those in. And just work on the inner mouth so it just has more of a concave feel. This is one of my favorite brushes. It feels more like I'm just back in the old clay sculpting days. Just gonna redynamesh now and then smooth things back. Kind of want these cool, interesting ridges. You know, this mouth is gonna be wide open. There's gonna be plenty of detail in there that's gonna be seen. Again, the jury's still out on how much detail I'm going to add to this. Like, am I going to add scales? Am I going to texture this? Well, right now, for sure, the plan is let's get it ready for printing, because I definitely want to see this thing printed. But that's as far as I've gotten in my brain. I mean, let me know in the comments below if, you know, going through the whole entire asset process, you know, making clean topology, clean UVs, texturing, look dev, if that's interesting to you guys, then let me know in the comments, and we can go that direction. But for now, my heart lies in the printer. Using H polish now, just kind of push this guy up and in. And now we're gonna get into some of our medium details. You know, she's got some nice spikes over her eyebrow area. Maybe some like going up this center line here. And again, we can turn on our Sculptris Pro and kind of achieve some dynamically driven topology. Put that on a t-shirt, man. And nice. going over to Clay Buildup, turning off my Sculptris Pro, and just pushing in some of these details. In this video, we're just going to try to really just get everything blocked out. So I'm even now getting into the weeds a little. This work's got to be done eventually, but for now, let's just keep blocking out things. So, all right, cool. Let's go ahead and real quickly add our tongue. So we'll hold Control. I'll left click onto the jaw and then hold Control and draw a mask in the rough tongue shape. And Control Alt to invert that mask as you paint, and then just holding Control will mask. Go over to Subtools, go to Extract, hit Accept. And now we've got a perfect tongue, just like that. I'm gonna inflate that and then get that in a better shape. So go ahead and run a Dynamesh on that. 128 resolution. As you can see, the only thing that I don't have stock here with this particular version of ZBrush is my shader. I'm not using that silly red wax shader that they always start with. I don't know why they do. I'm using just this guy over here, the Matte Cap Gray. Personally, I like that one the most so far. Turning on solo mode, and let's continue to do a little bit of detailing here. And awesome. I think these arms might need to come forward just a little. Forward and down. Yeah. Actually, let's pull them out like that, and then I'll left click over to our body and kind of pull some contact points out for that. Like that. There we go. Okay. Just remember, if at any time you forget to have your symmetry on, you can just do a mirror and weld. That is a frequent occurrence for me. Okay, so feet look a little bit tiny. Let's give those guys some mass. Let's take them to church. Too much, tiny bit too much. So maybe little ankle nubs here. Okay. Now the tail is still pretty tiny, so let's just gonna Control Alt and left click mask that, feather that mask by holding Control Alt. And let's come over here to scale, and then we'll adjust our pivot by unlocking and then relocking, and then we'll scale that tail out this way. It's gonna be a tricky display piece because it's not gonna be very vertical. Everyone likes vertical nowadays with vertical format aspect ratio and TikTok and everything ruining everything. So, but I just want to make it cool. That's my big concern. tricky tail to get right. Alright. Okay, I'm going to stop nitpicking on this guy. And hit save. Don't forget to use the fancy new Save Next button to version up your file. And maybe the last thing I'll do on the dinosaur, the T-Rex, is just add some little spikies. This is going to be not super comfortable for our rider, and honestly, I don't know that she excuse me, that she has spikes, but I want her to have them, so this honey badger don't care. Be sure to re-dynamesh things as you go along. Not going to get too crazy with these. Very cool, very cool. And then the last things we'll add real quickly before I wrap this video up is our, we'll add our eyes and then some teeth. So let's dive into the clay buildup. And that's good for now. Actually, let's do a mask and then we'll do an extract. And then we can always have those in a separate subtool so that they kind of maintain their shape. And you'll notice that I forgot to unmask, so we got the tongue again in there. I'm going to control, so that was just to get rid of that, I'm just holding control plus shift. And then while I drag out my rectangle, I'm holding alt to make it red. And then sending that to the invisible layer, so it's not deleted yet. If I were to control shift left click tap, you'll see that it's still there. I'm going to undo that and just go to delete hidden. And then we'll just re-dynamesh these eyeballs and just make those. So if you notice, a fun thing that you can do is we'll re-dynamesh at a higher resolution. Now if I just hold shift and it brings up this blue circle and I hold shift, it'll start to smooth, but as I'm left clicking, if you let go of shift, it'll perform a different smooth algorithm and kind of inflate things a little bit more than just smoothing. So that's kind of a fun little pro tip for you. And let's grab these eyes and center our pivot and then just move those into the head a little bit better. All right, so those are good. Let's unmask everything on the head here, and we're gonna do a fun little technique for, we'll try it anyway, we'll see if it'll work. So I'm going to flatten this guy out just a little bit more and then up my resolution to like 400 and re-dynamesh. And then I'll come in with holding control using my mask pen. I'm gonna draw out some teeth shapes. Just on the jaw right there. And I'm not gonna give her too many teeth. I think I'm gonna try to keep those to a minimum. I don't wanna have like shark count, you know? All right. And you're thinking to yourself, why did you do that? That's weird. Well, what I'm gonna do from here is do another extract. Come over here to subtool, go down to extract and hit extract. Turn down my thickness to something like 0.002. Hit accept and then just clear our mask by control left clicking and dragging. Go to deformation and do a inflate. And then we'll just run a dynamesh on those and start to smooth away and try to get those shaped a little bit more round. And again, there's other ways to do this for sure, but I just wanted to see if I could get this to work. I find myself using mesh extract more and more and more as the days go on. I find that it's a super cool, powerful thing. So I'm just using the snake hook to grab the tips and scaled my draw size down a good amount. And just kind of getting those to kind of curve in just a little bit. And now I'm going to disconnect these by holding Control Shift, and then our fancy Alt button will make that red, and then just do a modify topology, delete hidden, and then close holes. And then we'll smooth those guys out. Okay, so now let's get it to fit in the mouth. So I'm going to reset my pivot here, turn off symmetry, reset my pivot so it's actually in the center. And then we're going to just try to get these guys into place. And we might have to squash it in this extraction, and continue to just, well, You know what? I actually moved it over to the side somehow. How did I do that? So I'm using P to switch between perspective and orthographic view, just FYI. Okay, now those are even on both sides. I lost my symmetry somehow, so let's go ahead and unlock our pivot and then rotate the pivot to face the direction of the teeth, and then we'll scale in Y to give those some nice pointy size. And then we'll just go ahead and use deformation again, and then do an inflate. We want to make sure that when we do print these, that they're definitely gonna print okay. So we're gonna add a little bit more mass than we might think to be normal. And then I had, in the concept, I had these kind of like splaying out over the lip a little bit. I kind of liked that. And then from here, let's do what we did similar to the skull. We'll reset our pivot. We'll holding control, we'll left click and drag on the green arrow, and then turn off symmetry. Make sure our pivot is centered, and then holding shift, we'll grab the white circle and rotate that 180 degrees, and just try to get those in place up top. It's gonna be a little bit tricky. You turn on transparency mode to kind of see where things are at, and make sure your symmetry is on by hitting X, because like a tenderfoot, I'm constantly accidentally turning that off. He's got these big buck teeth, so we'll scoot those guys up. Very nice, okay. Okay, cool, cool, cool. And then the one thing I wanted to do too, and this is going to be tricky, so I'll have to break symmetry. She has a very distinct large tooth over here, and so what I'm going to do, you hit Shift F and you take a look at our poly frame. We have a bunch of just random poly groups scattered. So we'll come to poly group and we'll do an auto group, and then it'll include all of those. Anything that has continuous topology will be added to its own color. So I'm going to Control Shift left click on this guy right here, turn off symmetry because we're kind of moving out of symmetry land at this point. And then for this particular, actually, you know what? I'm going to use this tooth. This tooth has to be pretty big. That's just one of her staples. She's got a big old snaggle tooth here. Make it nice and pointy. And then I'm going to Control Shift left click on this guy, and then Control Shift left click and drag and just invert my selection. Come over here to geometry and just delete that one. We don't need it. Using the Move Topological brush is super powerful. It just uses, like the name implies, it's based on topology. So you can have your brush size super large, and even though these brushes or these teeth fit within the brush size, it'll only move this guy in the middle. So I tend to use that guy all the time. So it might be good while we're in here to kind of add some asymmetry to the teeth. We'll get rid of this little thing, however that happened. And just kind of like scoot things around because it's going to look more grisly and nefarious. Or gnarly, I should say, not nefarious. Words are hard. Alright, let's take a look at things. Maybe a little bit too crazy here. Alright, that's good enough for now, I think. Except for I want these teeth like we did before to kind of come out like so. Yeah. You notice I'm using my snake hook, so I kind of mess these guys up. Alright, cool. Let's unmask this. And we gotta add these little fleshy connecting tissue here. And I think I might do the same thing actually for that. So I'm gonna just draw a basic like triangle kind of shape, because it's already kind of similar to that shape that I can just draw right on that. Go to Subtool and do an extract, and that thickness is fine. Hit accept. but we will add some extra thickness by coming into the deformation menu and then inflating that out. And deformation, it's never gonna sound right to me. I don't know why. So now just using the transform tool to kind of get that into place, just making that kind of connect those two jaws together. Just cool beans. Alright, let's scoot it forward. I think it's got to be much larger. I'm going to have to get rid of those teeth. I'm going to pull some teeth already. A little too much. Here we go, that's looking better. Alright, let's get rid of these rear teeth. So I'm going to hold Control Shift and switch over to my select lasso for this. And then just select the ones I want to get rid of by holding Alt. And then make sure that those are on the hidden layer and then delete hidden. And now we've got that working. Make these guys just a little bit smaller. Yeah, cool. Let's hit P and see what things look like in perspective. I think it's looking pretty sweet. We'll go ahead and hit save and do maybe a version up, save next. And I think that'll do it for this video. So in the next video, we'll definitely continue with this fun project, and we'll make our caveman spear character, which I think that was his name, right? Yeah, spear. And so we'll start with him. We'll get his basic block out, and then we'll probably try to keep this within 4 videos or so to completion. If I'm not getting into texturing. But I'm not decided on that yet. So again, let me know in the comments if you want to see this guy textured and fully rendered and lit, or just 3D printed, because I'm definitely going that direction. But I think it would be cool to see it all textured out. So let me know. Get involved in the comments. Subscribe if you haven't. Share this with your friends and your family, your relatives, and we will see you in the next video.